Howdy, y'all. Greg Smith here, Backwoods Cryptids. Well, as most of y'all have been following my channel know, I've been doing a lot of research on a creature in the battlefield known as Old Green Eyes in the Chickamauga battlefield. For those of y'all who don't know, let me give you a quick brief history of that. The Battle of Chickamauga was the second bloodiest battle of the Civil War, second only to Gettysburg. Well, during that turmoil, people started talking about a creature, bipedal with green glowing eyes. And I started asking around. I have one witness interview, which you can find here on my channel, who has seen it at the tower. But it seems that it stays near the tower and Snodgrass Hill. And it's been seen a few times on the main road, Lafayette Road, that goes through the center of the park. Excuse me one second, y'all. There I got well, most of y'all know I've always said you can't just go out there and start hunting. You gotta do your research. Granted, I've been out there a few times, but I found a few things here and there online. But I decided to go to the old bookstore, McKay's Used Books, and see if I can find books that mention it there. And I found 3. All 3 of these books here mention Old Green Eyes. One of them mentioned it twice. So I'd like to take the time to share with y'all what some of these books say. This could be a little bit of a drawn out process here, reading this to y'all. Now, I'm not good at reading out loud, but I'm going to give it a shot. This first book is called Ghosts of the Southern Tennessee Valley by Georgina C. Kashatsky. Now, on her book, on page 113, is where it starts talking about Old Green Eyes. And I like to read this section to you, along with the sections out of these other books. So bear with me. And if you want to go get a drink, go ahead. Because this first section is quite a long. Yeah, this version is kind of long, so I'm going to get the longest one out of the buddy first. The section title is called Green Eyes Searching the Night, Chickamauga, Georgia, being location. Battlefields are surely the most haunted places. Death can come instantly, leaving the soul shocked and confused, or slowly and agonizingly imprinting the horror of violent destruction on the spirit and overcoming, at least temporarily, its instinct to pass on to the proper realm. Dying and frightened comrades, also lost in the gray void, surround the confused soul, holding it back and being held back in return. With so many reliving their last moments over and over, the battle never ends. Such a place is Chickamauga. Some say the Battle of Chickamauga still rages. After the tourists leave for the day, the souls of the long-dead soldiers rise up to roam the fields in search of fallen comrades, the enemy, or perhaps their own lost corpses. The battle, which burst into the quiet countryside September 19th and 20th of 1863, was one of the bloodiest of a bloody war. That corner of North Georgia was no great prize, but nearby Chattanooga was. The Union Major General William S. Rosecrans wanted it. His army of the Cumberland marched out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and intent on capturing Chattanooga's railroads, lifeline of the Confederates Confederacy in the Western Theater. Rosecrans' movements forced the Confederate General Braxton Bragg and his Army of Tennessee to fall back from Middle Tennessee to Chattanooga on the Tennessee-Georgia line. When Rosecrans' army came down through the rugged ridges of northeastern Alabama and northwestern Georgia in an attempt to cut Bragg's railroad supply line, Bragg abandoned Chattanooga and moved south to Lafayette, Georgia. With more than 100,000 blue and gray troops moving through the area, the little farming community nestled in the valley of West Chickamauga Creek was fated to witness one of the most horrible scenes of death and anguish ever on American soil. The men destiny had placed there in the most awful place seemed doomed from the start. Even the weather conspired against them. During the 6 weeks before the battle, there had been almost no rain. The day before the fighting, the temperature was mild, in the mid-60s. But that evening, the half moon set around midnight, leaving the skies gloomy and forbidding. Then the temperatures dropped 30 degrees the night of September 19th, and an unseasonable frost occurred the morning of September 20th, followed by a heavy fog, especially near Chickamauga Creek. Describing the night between the 2 days of battle, Confederate General John B. Gordon wrote, "The faint moonlight, almost wholly shut out by dense foliage, added to the weird spell of the somber scene. In every direction were dimly lit burning tampers carried by nurses and relief corps searching for the wounded. All over the field lay the unburied dead, their pale faces made ghastlier by the streaks of blood and clotted hair, and black stains of powder left upon their lips when they tore off with their teeth the ends of these deadly cartridges. At 9 o'clock on the Sabbath morning, September 20th, as the church bells of Chattanooga summoned the children to Sunday school, the signal guns sounded through the forest of Chickamauga, calling the bleeding armies to battle. So here, guys. Sorry, I'm fighting allergies, y'all. The fog, fortified by the smoke of battle, evaporated by mid-morning on the September 20th, revealing ruin of a grand scale. Surviving the gore scene, one Confederate general described the Chickamauga Creek as a river of death. Bloody Pond earned its gruesome name when the blood of the dead and dying soldiers and horses who had crawled there to quench their thirst emptied into the once clear water. Estimates vary, but it appears nearly 4,000 men were killed and over 26,000 wounded. Another 1,900 went missing, most of them likely dead. Some soldiers may have suffered moderate wounds and died of shock during the unseasonably cold nights, especially if they were without blankets. Some of the wounded were agonizing, burned to death, when they were overtaken by forest fires consuming the dry, tangled forest. Others crept off to hide and die. The dead and dying littered McFarland Road into Rossville. Confusion ruled the day. It is unknown how many ghosts haunt the rolling fields of Chickamauga Park. It is unknown how many ghosts haunt the rolling fields of Chickamauga. Park visitors tell stories of weird encounters with inexplicable eerie sights and sounds of phantom gunshots, footsteps, hoofbeats, groans are common on the bloody ground. The most famous of the Chickamauga Chickamauga's unique spirits is Green Eyes. Those unfortunate to find themselves within the park boundaries after sunset may well see his disembodied glowing eyes patrolling the dark battlefield. The reason behind this ceaseless mission remains a mystery. According to some locals, Green Eyes is a Confederate officer who led a small group of horsemen on the battlefield. Almost all of them were killed. Today, their commanding officer can be seen turning across the field in full gallop. Witnesses cited him on bridges. Some claim he bolts down the hill from Wilder Tower. His horse has been observed crying. The impetuous General Nathan Bedford Forrest might have inspired the tale of these fabled riders. He and 70 of his Tennessee horsemen sparked a skirmish when they unexpectedly encountered Union soldiers. Several lives were lost in the initial confrontation, including the prominent doctor whose head was blown off from his body. One of Forrest's cavalry officers wrote, "Neighing horses, wild and frightened, were running in every direction, whistling and seething, crackling bullets, the piercing, screaming fragments of shells, and the whirring sound of shrapnel, and the savage shower of canister, mangled with the fierce answering yells of defiance, all united in one horrible sound." He had never seen a battle so awful. The ghastly, mangled dead and horribly wounded strode the earth for over half a mile, up and down the riverbanks. He wrote the dead were piled up upon each other in ricks, like cordwood, to make passage for advancing columns. Chickamauga Creek ran red with blood. Others believe that Green Eyes might, excuse me a second, folks, I'm sorry. Allergies are not fun, folks, that's all I'm going to say. Alright. Others believe that Green Eyes legend might derive from a historical report. Hang on one second. Give me 1 second. I do apologize, y'all. Okay, apologies again, y'all. I had to go clear my nose out so I could stop itching. Alright, let me try this one more time. Others believe Green Eyes might be derived from the historic report relating heroic Union Colonel John Wilder and his brigade of mounting and infantrymen from Indiana and Illinois. They tried violently to hold the area south of Snodgrass Hill against General James Longstreet's onslaught, but failed. The white limestone tower, erected in 1902 in honor of Wilder and his men, has been the site of several suicides and other precarious goings-on. Over the years, there have been at least a couple of incidents nearby involving drivers who believe they saw green eyes. They got all psyched up and ran off the road at high speed, says former Ranger Bob Keebler. The Catoosa County News reported that some teenagers on a hayride near Wilder Tower in 1990 spotted a flaming torch and heard the sound of hooves as the ghostly green eyes drew near. As the ghostly green-eyed horse drew near, the group beheld its rider, a skeleton on which a Confederate uniform hung. The gruesome form seemed to dismount, muttering, "Amy, Amy," again and again before finally disappearing. Or perhaps he was saying enemy. Another tale says that Patrice Hobbs Glass, who grew up in nearby Lafayette, centers on the Wisconsin Cavalry Monument known as the Riderless Horse, which is near Wilder Tower to the west of Chickamauga Vidito Road. A widow of an officer killed during the battle treasured a pair of emerald earrings he had given her before he was called away forever. In tribute to him, she donated the emeralds to the monument as eyes in this statue, commemorating the bravery and sacrifice of his fallen men. The emeralds were in place the evening before the unveiling service. The next morning, as the crowd watched, officials ceremoniously uncovered the statue. The precious stones had vanished. And the officer had reclaimed his wife's earrings and set out to find her. The emeralds blazed brightly as he wanders the battlefield longing for her, his soulmate. Oh, and there's a picture right here of the monument that's supposed to have the emerald earrings in. Uh, 17-year-old Denise Nelson encountered a set of mysterious green eyes in 1980. Having taken a shortcut home to Chickamauga after her shift at the Crystal's restaurant in Fort Oglethorpe, Denise was driving through the S-curve not far from Wilder Tower at about 3 o'clock in the morning. She crept through the mist rising off the wet road, edged in the shroud of tall, dripping trees. Amid the dark landscape, a dark shape appeared. Denise was startled by its brilliant green eyes, level with her own, and only 20 feet away. The creature quickly faded into the forest. I sped up to get the heck out of there, she says. Denise has lived in the area her entire life and has seen many wild animals, but she insists it wasn't a raccoon, a squirrel, or even a deer. Maybe it was a bear or a panther, she began to think. As the years went by, regardless, she stopped using that route. I just went down the main drag after that, she says. By main drag, she means Lafayette Road. Perhaps what Denise saw was a big cat. Not a panther. Some believe Green Eyes roams the park in the form of a tiger. This legend is inspired by the monument on Snodgrass Hill, memorializing Opedites Tiger Regiment, the 125th Ohio Volunteers. Here's a picture of that monument. Right there. This unit of nearly 1,000 men was caught in the rout but managed to regroup on the hill where Longstreet assaulted it. 17 men died, 83 were wounded, and 5 were never found. It is said the grieving tiger leaves his stone at night and prowls the park, seeking out his men lost in battle. His eyes glow green in the murky shadows, especially when they fall on intruders. Others whisper of appalling, possibly Green Eyes is more ancient than the soldiers of the blue and gray. Here's where it gets interesting, folks. The battle was once the hunting ground for the Cherokee and likely an earlier nameless tribe that mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind a few artifacts and one indigenous demon. Some say dead or near dead. Some say Green Eyes were seen during the battle, creeping among the dead and near dead. Was this ghoulish entity present long before the white man's madness, part of the dark past lost to history? Or was it lured to the battlefield by the unspeakable horror of new death and despair? Chattanooga Valley resident Mike Moore believes Green Eyes is a demon. My friends tell me that when Green Eyes is in the battlefield, ghosts leave. Because he is not a ghost. He is a demon from hell. He smells like sulfur, and it's ice cold in his trail. Do ghosts fear demons? I'd have to say yes, says Mike. I don't like them. Contemporary folks have come to have long-haired fang apparition. Have seen a long fang. Let me start over. Contemporary folks claim to have seen a long fang apparition walking upright beneath a flapping cape. Former Chief Ranger Ed Tinney told Catoosa County News reporter Kevin Cummings that in 1976 he was walking along the Glen Kelly Road at about 4 in the morning. He encountered a man over 6 foot tall wearing a long black duster with shaggy, stringy, black waist-length hair walking toward him, wrote Cummings. Afraid of being attacked, Kenny crossed the road. When the man became parallel with Kenny, he turned and smiled a devilish grin, with his dark eyes glistening. Fortunately, a car approached. When the headlights hit the menacing figure, it vanished. John Hodgins spent hours as a teenager cruising the park with classmates, hoping to see Green Eyes. Shortly after midnight, one cold fall evening in 1984, Hodges and his brother Jim and 4 East Ridge High School seniors were riding in a Ford convertible near Wilder Tower. They left the car and they walked 20 to 30 yards into the field. Excuse me, my throat's getting dry, folks. I do apologize. Yards into the field. Seemingly out of nowhere, a light appeared. The boys didn't think much of it. It was probably a car, they figured. The light, which Hodge estimated to be was 5 to 6 feet off the ground, turning bluish green, came closer and closer through the trees and brush, then split in two about 100 yards away. The boys could not draw a breath to scream. They sprinted to the car and dove in, not bothering to open the doors. As the car tore away, a loud noise like a gunshot assaulted them. All ducked while shrieking, "Let's go." Later they discovered a rod under the car had cracked. The mechanic told them only extreme heat could cause such damage. They could not fathom how the rod could have reached such a temperature on a night so chilly. The boys never went back to the battlefield after dark. Jim Hodges, who played tackle for Memphis State football team, spoke for all the boys. "It scared the pee out of me." Lakeview Northrop High School student Blake Burnett grew up in the park. Though he doesn't accept most of what he hears about old green eyes, he does believe green eyes exist. He has seen the glowing eyes. "I don't have a light, so I couldn't have been a possum," he says. One evening while camping in the park with Boy Scout Troop 8. Dang it. Sorry y'all, my nose just keeps itching. With Boy Scout Troop 8, he spotted a large creature. He and a couple other scouts were wrestling in a field across from and slightly south of the Florida Monument on the Fett Road. It was dark, but clear. A quarter moon in the sky. During the melee, Blake happened to glance toward the highway, several hundred feet away. "I saw something really big cross the road in the headlights," he says. "I guessed it was 7.5 to 8 feet tall. It wasn't wearing any clothes. It was hairy. It started to walk across the road, but when it went into a large gallop on all fours, the cars were coming, and it didn't want to be caught or hit." Blake hollered for the other boys to look, but too late. The creature was gone. "It was either a grizzly bear or green eyes. I'm pretty sure there's no grizzlies in the park," Blake says. He's got a point. They're on the other side of the Mississippi. His friend Drew Jennings, also of Troop 8, did not see the creature but believes Blake. "I've known him since middle school. I trust anything he'd say. He's an Eagle Scout. Blake thinks the creature is a spirit of a Civil War soldier who got betrayed and got messed over, and is bent on revenge. Back when Fort Oglethorpe was an active Army post, Blake has heard green eyes would kill people, even before that. In the 1870s, he would kill old Union soldiers or people would just disappear. Others, he says, would be found mauled, not by coyotes, but by something bigger. Still, Blake will not say the entity is evil. You don't mess with him, and he don't mess with you. Blake admits, I do believe in ghosts. He and Drew will continue to camp in the park with Troop 8, eyes and ears open. And that's it for that part of the book, for this book. Now, as I said at the start of this, I have 2 more books. So let's move on to the next one, shall we? This book is called Haunted U.S. Battlefields, subtitled Ghosts, Hauntings, and Eerie Events from America's Fields of Honor by Mary Beth Crane. Also got this book at McKay's. Now this book I think is the one that mentions Old Green Eyes twice. So y'all bear with me once. Oh, by the way, this is a second edition, by the way. I think I should mention that. Page 77. Okay, I think it's the last book that mentions Old Green Eyes twice. Because I only see one reference to it in here. And for those of y'all who are here, please remember, hit that subscribe button. Hit those like buttons for me. Alright, this one is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I also had a total of 6 pages, counting these two as one. Well, no one's watching, but I'm going to keep going anyway because someone might come in. Old Green Eyes. The Battle of Chickamauga was one of the bloodiest of the Civil War, just behind Gettysburg in total casualties. Today, the battlefield, which is now Chickamauga Chattanooga National Military Park, is a haunted haven for ghosts of both human and perhaps non-human. I don't even know what that word is. Non-human persuasions. The most famous supernatural resident is Old Green Eyes, who has been roaming the area since the early days when the Native Americans christened Chickamauga Creek the River of Death. It was a cold, foggy night, Denise Smith recalls. The year was 1980. The place was the Chickamauga Chattanooga National Military Park in Tennessee. Smith had just gotten off work at the Crystal's restaurant in nearby Fort Overthorpe and decided to take a shortcut home to the park when she drove slowly because of the fog and rain, when, in her words, something big in the road about eye level, and all she could see was big green eyes. It was so foggy I couldn't see a body. As I got closer and it disappeared. Smith had just witnessed the apparition of Old Green Eyes, a ghostly creature that has been seen since the Civil War, and many say before. On the battlefield at Chickamauga Creek, that claimed 35,000 lives in September of 1863. Various descriptions of a tall figure with shaggy hair and dismembered body head that floats out of the darkness, a half man, half beast. All witness accounts of this persistent phantom have one thing in common: the green eyes that glow with phosphorant malevolence. Chickamauga Creek is located near Chattanooga, at the Tennessee-Georgia border. Its original habits were the Cherokee Indians, who named the Chickamauga Creek, or River of Death. Indeed, untimely demise to the dog of the heavy wooded area, whose overgrown vines and numerous thickets could unofficial burial ground over centuries of Native American Civil War troops and many others. In 1898, when Chickamauga became a training camp for soldiers en route to the Spanish-American War, disease repeatedly swept through the camp, decimating more American troops than the war. And the legacy of death has continued to this day. Chickamauga Chattanooga National Military Park has witnessed more than its share of murder and suicides, and its notorious dumping ground for victims of murder all over that region. Does a curse really seem to haunt Chickamauga? Union troops would have said yes. The Battle of Chickamauga, fought between September 18th and September 20th of 1863, was one of the last Confederate victories of the Civil War. For over a year, Federal troops have been trying to push the enemy out of Tennessee and capture Chattanooga, the gateway to the Confederacy. With its vital railroad lines, the key rebel war industries, Chattanooga was central to Union victory. Control of the region meant open access to Georgia and the opportunity to divide the Eastern Confederacy. General William Rosecrans and his Army of the Cumberland had the upper hand over General Braxton Bragg's Army of Tennessee in Chattanooga when Confederate reinforcements under General James Longstreet arrived by train. The rebels proceeded to lure Rosecrans' troops out of Chattanooga, whereupon they launched a devastating attack on Union forces along Chickamauga Creek. The Union might have had a chance if Rosecrans hadn't committed a fatal mistake. He accidentally ordered his men to close a gap in the Union line that did not exist. As a result, he opened another hole for the Confederates, who plunged through it, routing the Yankees and forcing the whole Union Army to retreat in shambles back to Chattanooga. Revenge came 2 months later at the Battle of Chattanooga, this time with Rosecrans replaced by General George Haney Thomas and General Ulysses S. Grant, in charge of all Federal troops between the Appalachians and the Mississippi, and Union troops were in far better shape. On November the 24th of 1863, they took Lookout Mountain. The next day, however, when things really heated up, the troops under General Thomas attacked the 1st Confederate trenches below Missionary Ridge. Swarming over the trenches, they waited for orders. Suddenly, General Phil Sheridan, who was attacking with Thomas, decided it was a good time for a little bravado. Pulling a flash from his pocket, he waved a toast to the Confederate gunners at the ridge. "Here's to you, boys," he hollered. The toastie responded with a volley of gunfire that showered Sheridan and his men with dirt. Excuse me, folks, my throat's getting a little dry again. Good old Coca-Cola. That was ungenerous. Sheridan shouted with gentlemanly intention. "I'll take your guns for that." Hey, y'all give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Oh, my leg's going to sleep on me. Ugh. Ooh. Come on, stretch it out, man. Okay, I've already read out of that one. I'm just picturing that arrogant general. Here's to you, boys! Sorry, y'all, I had to stretch out my leg for a second, but I'm right back in it now. Union troops took Sheridan's boast as a battle cry. With wild whoops, they charged up the hill toward the rebel artillery. Who the hell ordered those men uphill? A worried Grant asked an officer. No one, the officer replied. Let's start up without orders. When those fellows get started, all hell can't stop them. And indeed, these fellows descended upon the Confederates like a herd of banshees screaming Chickamauga at the top of their lungs. The Confederate gunners fired and rolled shells with lighted fuses down the slope, but the Federals were undeterred. The terrified rebels beat a hasty retreat. That day, not only was the victory for the Union, as it was also settling of a score. The North humiliating defeat at Chickamauga had been avenged. Today, Chickamauga Chattanooga National Military Park is one of the oldest and largest battlefield parks. Tall tree lines and tranquil paths, sharing the stately minuscule grounds with cannons, monuments, and other reminders of the war between the states. During the day, millions of visitors enjoy its quiet, pristine beauty. But it's not the kind of place you want to hang around in after sun goes down, unless you're ready for a bona fide ghost encounter. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of this part of this, aren't we? I think I'll take a note from that old general and cheers. See, that clears up my sinuses a bit. Rangers and tourists alike have reported the usual odd phantom noises traditionally associated with battlefields, from men moaning and crying to shouts and screams with no visible presence. The unmistakable sound of combat and galloping horses, where no horses have even appeared, accompanied by black shapes that disappear when the viewer tries to get a closer look. Some of the most frequently witnessed apparitions include Headless Horseman, the famous Lady in White. The horseman is thought to be the ghost of Lieutenant Julius. Okay, this name is split in half on the page, so give me a second here. Garcia, who served under General Rosecrans, and was killed by a cannonball at Chickamauga, a casualty of the commander's misguided order to close the non-existing gap in the Union line. Brigadier General William Hazen, who directed the shallow temporary internment of, I'm never going to try to pronounce that name, that Garchini. Sorry, I know I'm butchering this name, and I do apologize. On a tiny knoll nearby, described Garchini. Grisly remains in a letter found in annuals of the Army of the Cumberland, I saw but a headless trunk, and Eden of crimson form had issued where the head should be. I once recognized his figure. It lay so naturally, his right hand across his breast. As I approached, dismounting and bent over him, the contraction of muscles extended his hand slowly and slightly toward me. Taking hold of it, I found it warm and lifelike. Although Garshi was later buried in Washington, D.C., his decapitated ghost seemingly remains in Chickamauga. For many have reported seeing him gallop through the woods at night. Lillian White. Okay, I'm going to pass all this. No, okay, it's not that far. We're getting to the part about old green eyes here, folks. I'm sorry it's taking so long, but I just want to make sure I read all this, because again, you got to be thorough with your research. The Lady in White is such a familiar apparition at the park that rangers don't bat an eye anymore when people report seeing her. Dressed in a wedding gown, she roams the grounds and as if searching for something or someone. She is thought to be one of the many wives, mothers, or lovers, or who scoured the battlefield the night the carnage ended, looking for the bodies of their dead. The story goes that one Raven girl in particular apparently never gave up the search for her missing boo. For years, locals talked of the poor, deranged woman who wandered through the woods, glens, and fields of Chickamauga, a lantern lighting her way at night, in an endless quest for the body of her beloved. When she died, she was buried in a white bridal gown. But apparently she was to know no rest, even in death. Of course, sightings of a spectral lady in white could be attributed to imagination fueled by local legend. I can agree with that. But the remarkable thing about this apparition is that she has been glimpsed so many times by tourists all over the world who have never heard the tale. Now we're getting to the part I've been waiting on. It is Green Eyes, however, who holds the title of Park Residence Spook Extraordinaire. Stories of his sightings began springing up almost as soon as the last shots were fired at Chickamauga. And actually, Insuits have been part of the landscape long before the Civil War, when Native Americans told their tales of a vengeful Indian spirit with flashing green eyes, who is said to have haunted the area for generations. So this could mean it goes back to Cherokee. Great. An angry spirit of the Cherokee. When it comes to ghost stories, you can put a lot down to exaggeration and a power of suggestion. But when a down-to-earth park ranger admits to seeing a ghost, you have to wonder. Edward Trenier, historian and former chief ranger at the park, told his unnerving tale. One day in 1976, at about 4 a.m., I went to check some battle reenactors who were camping out in the park. I was walking near Glen Kelly Road when I saw a tall figure over 6 foot in height walking toward me. It seemed human, and at the same time it was not. It had shaggy, stringy, waist-length hair, black hair, greenish orange eyes, and pointed teeth that resembled fangs. Feeling extremely threatened by his presence, I crossed to the other side of the road. As he, or it, walked by me, he turned, smiled a devilish sort of grin. At that moment, a car came down a straightaway in the road. As soon as the headlights hit the figure, it vanished. Old Green Eyes apparently can take several forms. Although Tanny saw a humanesque figure, the phantom often manifests as just a head. According to one witness who grew up near the park in Walker County, Georgia, the battlefield, a beautiful and somber place in day, is haunted by the shadows of the past at night. Those who venture there in the fading twilight are best advised to lock their car doors. The apparition can appear without any forewarning. This ghostly manifestation of the one who died on these grounds so long ago haunts every part of the park. The gleaming green eyes can spring from the nothingness, and the sorry folks, I'm getting tongue tied. The glowing green eyes can spring forth from nothingness, and most peculiar aspect of the ethereal being is that it usually sees only the head. Some have seen the headless body of the apparition as he searches for his head in the dark of the night. More than one person has seen the extraordinary event. One young man, a Civil War buff, an amateur military historian, witnessed the disembodied version of Green Eyes, emphasizing it was not in any way a believer in the paranormal. This man visited Chickamauga, Chattanooga Park purely for military history experience, and was heading back to his car after visiting the battlefield when he heard a loud groan coming from the woods nearby. Assuming someone was hurt, he ran into the woods. He immediately felt a sense of foreboding. Suddenly, an astonished sight appeared in the twilight. This floating head with glowing green eyes burst out of the trees. He recalled, this thing wasn't scary. It was terrifying. I just yelled and ran like hell. Yes, old Green Eyes has made a believer out of more than one scoffer. Never again, said our Civil War buff. While he discounts the many stories of ghosts who haunt the battlefield, where 35,000 soldiers perished, neither will Dennis Smith, the young woman who took the memorable shortcut through the park one chilly misty night. I always thought the tale of old Green Eyes was just a myth, Smith said. When interviewed about her creepy experience, frankly, I never would have believed in a million years. But after seeing the disembodied green orbs glowing in the night of the fog of Chickamauga Park, she changed her tune. To this day, even though Route 27 runs directly from Fort O to the park, Smith refuses to return to that area, preferring to take the long way home. And that's it for that part of the book, y'all. Now we got one more book here. I'd like to thank y'all who taking the time to watch this. I'd like to thank those who popped in and out here throughout my live stream. But please, again, I'd like to remind y'all, please hit that subscription button. Hit that like button for me. It don't take but a second, and it don't cost you nothing. Also, you want to help me out? Share these videos. Share my page. Now this last one, I believe, like I said, this is supposed to be the one that mentions green eyes twice. This is called Civil War Ghost of Northwest Georgia by Jim Mills, published by Haunted America. And I apparently have this one marked. The Ghoul, Old Green Eyes. Famed ghost hunter Dale Kazmic. I'm sorry if I butcher your name and you're hearing this. I do apologize. Kazmic conducted the first in-depth ghost research at Chickamauga. Edward Tronney, again, he's mentioned in all these books, so he is a key figure in these, apparently. How many pages is this part? So 1, 2, mentioned organized there. Okay, this ain't so long. Only 4 pages. Chief historian at the Battlefield Park, and a World War II veteran. Who worked here from 1969 to 1986. Told him the legend of green eyes. The preferred origin of that ghost is that a Confederate soldier whose body was destroyed by an artillery shell, only his head was left to be buried, and it regularly bobs across the battlefield at night, particularly on Snodgrass, moaning piteously, while frantically searching for its body. History says ghosts in battlefields such as Green Eyes tales began happening soon after the war. Tenney said one employee maintains that the beheaded soldier was a Confederate killed by his Federal brother. An alternate theory is that Old Green Eyes is a ghoul, a supernatural corpse-eating creature predating the settlers and perhaps even the Indians. Native Americans' myth describe a large, hairy creature that make off with children at night. Rumors persist that during the lulls of Confederate attacks at Snodgrass Hill, the entity was seen inspecting the recently deceased, choosing the best for its feast. Many bodies were never recovered. That's creepy. Whichever story you prefer, Old Green Eyes is Chickamauga's most frequent reported haunt. Often seen around dusk. 2 big, glowing eyes that approach the unwary. The creature groans mournfully. Kenny claims that he was not a superstitious man, but freely admitted, "I've seen green eyes." You know he's watching. We all know he's watching us. It's enough to make your hair stand up on the back of your neck. Tenney encountered green eyes several times. He was hiking a park trail on a foggy night of 1976 when he had a close encounter with a human-like shape that was not human but came within 20 feet of him. When it passed me, he told Witcher Weiner in 1981, he could see its hair was long, like a woman's. The eyes, I'll never forget those eyes. They were glaring, almost a greenish orange in color, flashed like some sort of wild animal. The teeth were long and pointed like fangs. It was wearing a dark cape that seemed to be flapping in the wind, but there was no wind. I didn't know whether to run, scream, or what. See, what I like about having these three books, we get different bits and pieces of his encounter and his quotes. So maybe between all three of these books, we'll get the whole story. Kenny was out early one morning between 4 and 5 a.m. on the anniversary of the battle, walking along the road to check the reenactment groups camping on the grounds. I was walking down, the moon was still out, and you could see just the same as daylight. I noticed someone coming towards me. I thought it might be one of the reenactors, but not knowing for certain, I moved to the other side of the road, and the closer it came to me, the more apprehensive I got. But it didn't look normal. It didn't look human. When just a few feet away, it turned to me. I turned to it. When it turned to me, it began to smile. The grin on its face. It said, "Drop dead." As soon as they passed each other, the car came across the bend, headlights blazing through the fog. Kearney walked backwards to keep an eye on the figure, which never looked back at him. After it got parallel with him, it looked forward. It just kept looking up the road. It dissipated and it vanished. What happened to it? The creature did not cross the road up to his side as he would have seen it. It did not go into the woods on the other side because the underbrush was unpenetrable. Now where did it go? Attorneys asked. He didn't know what it was, but it was definitely not of this world. Whatever this was had to be alive at one time because it walked. He thought, this walked just like you or I. Other witnesses swear that if the apparition makes eye contact, it will stare a person down until it passes out of sight. Wherever there has been great suffering, Tenney said, people are always seeing strange things. Ranger Charles Fisher never saw Grenaz, but he showed two separate one-car wrecks in the park during the 1970s. Two drivers distracted by the creature. Both cars struck the same tree. Now that's interesting. Right there. Two separate wrecks, both hit the exact same tree because they're distracted by old green eyes. The monster had been spotted briefly by several rangers on night patrol. The green eyes passing in front of several vehicles and disappearing into the perpetual mist. It has been reported each night. A mysterious fog rolls over at Chickamauga battlefield, a phenomenon that is absent outside the park grounds. Yet another legend of Old Grenaz comes from the battlefield monument dedicated to the 125th Ohio Infantry. The men fought so bravely at Snodgrass Hill that Divisionary Commander James Wood named them the Tiger Regiment. And they were called the Abdatsky tigers. I know I'm butchering these names. I'm sorry. For their commander, Colonel Emerson Apatz. You know, anyone that can say that name right there, my hat's off to you. Right there. The 125th Ohio lost 17 killed, 83 wounded, and 5 missing at Snodgrass Hill. Atop the monument is a powerful stone tiger carved from stone. The green eyes are said to belong to the wild animal that patrols the hill at night, seeking the regiment's casualties. Its emerald eyes burnt, glowing menacingly at visitors. Kazimierz felt very queer at Snodgrass Hill. I did not spend a lot of time there on the hill because of this overpowering feeling. It's about opening us too. Yep. Well, this one. Okay, this one little section I'm not going to read. Ghost Horses I'm not reading because it doesn't even mention Old Green Eyes in it. So I'm going to skip down to the band practice. Doug Alreton is a scoutmaster in North Georgia who takes Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts camping in the Chickamauga battlefield. In order to tear them out on one summer evening, he organized a game of Capture the Flag, divided the youths into teams planting the flag and planting a flag and lantern at the top of Snodgrass Hill. The defenders soon heard the sounds of drums, flutes atop the elevation. According to George, and then it goes back to mention the that first book I read. Fearing the trick was being played, a scout reported the phenomenon to Alberton. He sent the younger boys to camp and ascended the hill with the older lads. They heard Civil War type music near the cabin. At the log structure, the music ceased, and he heard the sound of dozens of people running in the woods. The 11 members of Snodgrass family were home when the fighting broke out during the war, but their home was never transformed into a federal hospital. But their home was transformed into a federal field hospital. They fled for the wooded ravine. There they listened to the roar of battle, the silence of victory, and finally a Confederate band that played joyful, perhaps. Those were the sounds heard that late summer evening. Gary told John Hodge, who was cruising the park, and we're going back to those guys who were searching for grenades in the convertible. Who were cruising the park in 1964, searching for old green eyes in a Ford convertible full of fellow high school seniors. Parking near Wattle Tower, they walked into the field, where the light apparently winked into existence. The light, 6 foot off the ground, bluish green, approached through the trees and underbrush, and split into two lights at the distance of 100 yards. At that point, the boys conceded the field, leaping into the car, racing away with a loud sound of a shot. The noise turned out to be a rod that cracked beneath the car. Only extreme heat could have caused it. They can't believe John's brother Jim, a witness and later tackle for Memphis State University, said it scared the pee out of me. On the night of October 20th, 2001, getting up to more recent sightings now. Former members of the Federation for Paranormal Research, the FPR, visited Chattanooga to search for old green eyes. I need to talk to those folks. So if any of y'all from the Federation of Paranormal Research or happen to be watching or get found to this, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to y'all about y'all's findings on old green eyes. That's Snodgrass Hill. Jennifer McElhaun wrote that team, including Olivia Newton and Terry Dembrill, felt surrounded and sad with emotions. Enough to fill a mind for a lifetime. They interviewed a ranger who had been patrolling the park after the closing hours one night. After receiving reports of trespassers investigating, he drove to the area and found 2 adults and 2 children running at full speed. He spotted the family and found them in a hysterical state. While walking through the field, their son became alarmed for no discernible reason, and then experienced what they thought was the scent of alcohol. The 4 looked around and saw nothing. Decided to exit the area rapidly. As they ran, an arm appeared out of nowhere and scratched one of the adults. The ranger confirmed that the man's shirt was torn, and several scratches were still bleeding. When the ranger searched the area where the incident had occurred, he found nothing visible. They did experience a horrible stench that could not have emanated from a drunken vagrant. The ranger pointed out that the Albuquerque Tiger Monument as the place haunted by old green eyes. The team took many photos and was rewarded with a number of mist and orbs captured by different cameras. Orbs bounced around in different directions, including a small one that shot rapidly across the large area. A golden orb was photographed around the Tiger Monument. In a separate frame shone a mist around it. Now, I know one of these books mentioned old green eyes twice. So if y'all give me 1 second, we may be revisiting one of these books. I think it may have been this one right here. No. Well, that's everything the book says, all 3 of them, about old green eyes. So y'all, there you have it. Me proving I'm actually trying to do the research as thoroughly as possible. Buying books. Next thing I'll do, I'll try to go through all the podcasts and all the stuff I find online, make notes, and share that with y'all, including which podcast it came from and which website. Until then, y'all, hit the subscribe one more time. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. And I'll see y'all later.